This is The Culture.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast. We're back. We're talking about a new movie that could be in awards contention, maybe. Well, it'll depend on our conversation, I guess. We're talking about May December, the newest movie from Netflix that stars Julianne Moore, Natalie Portman, and Charles Melton. It's directed by Todd Haynes. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined this time by Liz Seiko.
Hello, everybody.
And I am also joined by Zach Miller.
Hey, what's up?
What's up? All right, so I'm excited for this conversation because we haven't talked much about the movie, but what I have figured out between the letterbox reviews and between the individual text message we've all shared is that we all have very different opinions, mostly about this movie.
Yeah.
This might be the most divisive, I feel like, a conversation between the three of us will ever be.
That's crazy.
I'm just saying, man.
So let's go to work.
Let's go to work. All right. This is a movie that, again, so this is something that we were just talking about right off camera before we started recording. I was unaware that this was based on like true events, this movie. Liz had no idea what the movie was.
I went in
about.
fully blind to this movie, had not watched a trailer, had not read a synopsis, was just like, okay, Julianne Moore, Natalie Portman, May December.
So you
Boom.
were just in because of the lead performers.
Yeah, and I mean, people have been talking about this, that like whispers of like, ooh, this could get some like noms early on. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch it. Definitely not what I was prepared for, but I guess like who's prepared for this story? Yeah, and I also didn't know the real life like story that this was based off.
Yeah, and Zach, for reference, where was your intelligence level in terms of what you knew going into the movie? Like, were you aware of the story? Did you watch the trailer?
I think I kind of just thought that it was another case of someone really wanted a position or a higher standing. Like I thought Natalie Portman was just trying to steal Julianne Moore's identity or something. Like that was my perception.
That's kind of how I felt.
I don't think I caught. There must have been a first trailer that I watched that I didn't catch those incidental.
Are we getting into spoilers early on, or should we?
I would like to avoid it for a little bit.
Okay.
Let's just let's talk about this. Let's talk about the plot of the film because.
Well,
let's see. Let's just read the IMDb synopsis.
Yeah, what's the synopsis?
Because I think that's a fair way to judge this.
Yeah.
Because if you motherfuckers don't go on IMDb to read your synopsis, then I don't know what you're doing.
Well, I didn't read a synopsis, but
that's fair. Yeah. But I'm just saying this will leave it out of spoiler territory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do they leave
I'm just going to read the synopsis.
Yeah, read it for us.
20 years after their notorious tabloid romance gripped the nation, a married couple buckles under pressure when an actress arrives to do research for a film about their past.
Okay, so
they even leave some details out.
We're gonna leave the little detail then out, I think, for the next like 10, 20 minutes.
Yeah, so stick around. We'll start with non-spoilery talk, and then we'll warn you guys when we start to go into spoilers. I feel like the best way to approach this is to talk about our just first impressions of the movie in general.
Okay.
Let's start with you, Liz.
First impressions was this is a good film. It's not a great film in my opinion. I think it's an incredible character study for the actors. It is a lot for them to chew on and work with, kind of flex their acting muscles. But story-wise, one, I'm not really interested probably in hearing this story, but also I think that there was a lot not like finished. There was a lot left open, a lot not finalized, and I get why they did that approach, because they want their audience to walk away with a lot of questions and kind of making your own opinion on like, is this character bad or are they good, or like what are their motives and how do they feel. But like I wanted some opinion from like, why tell this story if you're not going to give an opinion or tell like what's the reason of telling this if you're not going to show us an opinion? I think
that's a fair criticism.
Yeah.
I think that the approach stylistically that I don't know if it was more the director or if it was more the performers or a mixture of all of it and the script plays off of what you just said, and I agree with. The movie comes from like it's been described by like people everywhere, whether it's like professional critics or people on Letterboxd, is like this movie that's filled with camp, and it's
I've
not
seen that.
campy in a way that it's like satirical, or it's not campy in a way that it's like a parody. Like it's not in that vein, but they try to tell this story that is about something very serious and something that can be described, I would say, by 100% of the people knowing what happens, that it's a disgusting act that happens. And they approach it from a place, in my opinion, where it doesn't feel like they take it as seriously as they should.
Yeah.
And it's not that the movie needs to be dark for the sake of being dark, but to me, it's like, if you're not going to go in that direction, I don't see the need to make a movie like this.
Yeah, for me, I wouldn't necessarily characterize this film as camp. I think that it also depends on like what you label camp as. I think that's a whole other conversation. But for me, this felt like a Lifetime movie. I was telling Zach that before. I felt like they were coming at it from like, okay, like let's kind of make a comment or kind of almost make fun of those films that remake like those movies that make a movie just to retell a story that happened in real life. I also feel like they were trying to comment on tabloids in a way more than comment on the actual story. But I don't know. I just feel like when a story is this fucked up and like crazy, like you can't, like you need to have a statement at a certain point. You can't just let it sizzle out on its own.
Zach.
So I know what you guys are saying. I think I can totally get behind how this film is a little bit more dramatic compared to other films like that subject matter. I was actually just thinking about Spotlight too, as another movie where it kind of messes with similar themes of morals and you know, they're trying to stand up for something that isn't right, and it goes into that a little bit with this. And I think the campiness comes from the fact that Natalie Portman is an actress and she's trying to replicate these events. So maybe the replication and the redo of those theatrical elements to it, and her being so theatrical and method at a serious subject matter, it makes it a little campy at points. And I think my one campiness that took me out of it was the music. I think the music was a little too strong for me.
I hated the music.
But that being said, I really did like the movie just because I felt like I was drawn to Julianne Moore's complexity of just how I wanted to see her just completely unravel what was justifying her, like come up with these situations. Like that was so horrible to see her just completely dismiss it and just living like the pain that Chris Melton went through too with
Charles Melton,
yeah. Sorry. That he went through with his adolescence and just how he had to live with that pain. That was also super intriguing for me. And then Natalie Portman was pretty good too. So I know what you're saying. Like, I think it was juggling the genre a little bit, and then it went artistic at some points. So I know what you're trying to say. I think we'll get into it more. But
at some points, I feel like it balanced like high art, but then at other times it was like very melodramatic.
Yeah, I just kind of wish I knew a little bit more of what they wanted to comment on, because I feel like there was a lot that they were trying to say without actually saying it. Like for a moment, I was like, are they trying to comment on actors?
It's very visual. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Are they trying to like comment on actors not seeing, like when they're playing a person, not seeing them as a person, but seeing them just as a character, and like that they don't care? Like I didn't know what they were trying to get at, honestly. I think the performances were beautiful. I think I love Natalie Portman. She could literally just do a McDonald's commercial and I'd be like, yes, thank you. But I thought that they all delivered really well. I just feel like the story lacked for me. I don't know. I feel like specifically in the ending, I wish that they had a little bit of a harder punch rather than just like floating away, kind of.
Okay. Let's talk about the performances and then we can get into spoilers.
All right. Who should we start with?
Let's start with Charles Melton. Because Charles Melton, for the people who are unaware, because I was unaware of him until I started to see sort of these articles coming out talking about his performance in this movie. Like, I forget what festival this premiered at. I want to say it was Sundance last year. So it's been on the minds of people for a long time.
I think I'm
Or was
pretty
it
sure
TIFF?
where did Killers of the Flower Moon premiere?
Con.
That was Con?
I think this premiered
Let's
there.
see.
I'm pretty sure they premiered at the same.
Okay, you're right. It
yeah.
premiered at Cannes in May. So I remember from some of the film journalists and critics that I followed that right away people were like, similar to how I feel like we all are with the two lead performances. Some of us really like some of us feel a little differently, but everyone was like, but watch out for Charles Melton, like right away. And I was like, I don't know. I've never heard of this guy before.
I think because he surprised us. Like Portman and like we're expecting big hitting performances from the two, and so then him coming in and like stealing the show, quote unquote, is what everyone's saying, was I think just surprised a lot of people.
Yeah, and they're both. Natalie Portman's won an Oscar, right? Did she win for Black Swan?
I believe so.
She's definitely won one. I don't know if it was for
Julianne Moore won for Still Alice. Natalie Portman won one Oscar. Let's say. Let's double check. I think it was Black Swan. You might be able to pull it up before I do.
Let's see who gets to it.
Anyway. So Charles Melton acting alongside these two people, and this is not to criticize the performance that he did potentially on the CW program Riverdale, but that is what he was famous for prior to this movie, and he kind of catapults himself to this role that the way that his performance was is the movie that I wanted to see. There was like a much deeper pain. And it's not like I'm going into these movies like, give me the worst fucking possible scenario you can give me, because it's depressing as fuck. Like we'll get to it, but like the situation, the scenario is really depressing. It's really awful, but he plays it in such a way where you genuinely see it through his eyes, where you're like, oh my God, this guy has so much more pain than he's letting on. And he's so sheltered in a way because of what happened to him that it just feels like they're in different movies. Like it feels like he's in a different movie. And Natalie probably is in the same movie as him, but to me, it's because she's playing this B-level actress that's like going above and beyond to try to tell the story in her own way, that it feels like Lifetime-y, like in a way, but she's playing it that way. But that's how I felt about it. Melton, I felt, came at it from such a perspective that there's so much that's deep-rooted within his character that I feel like despite us only seeing him at one point in his life in the movie, you see his character's adolescence through him, which is so like immense,
so good,
incredible in the way he handled that performance. So Charles Melton was awesome in this movie. I really liked him in this movie.
Also, like to the point, perfect acting, because his character started one way and he came out a totally different point of view. I feel like in the beginning, his character was very naive to what him as a person was dealing with. He just was kind of stuck in kind of like those bugs that he's like dealing with. He's like stuck in his cocoon. And then all of a sudden he was like, wait a minute, no, why do I feel this way? And so really great transitioning for him. As for Natalie Portman, I agree. I really enjoyed her performance. There were moments though that I was just like, it felt a little too, like dreamy in a way. Like we all of a sudden got into these like dream sequences. It felt like that she wasn't in real time. But I mean, she's always very riveting to watch. And then also, I will say the one thing, I wish I liked her character more. I found her character to be very unlikable at a certain point.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and so like for me, I wasn't really rooting for her. I was just kind of like, okay, like leave.
Yeah,
She was an anti-hero. Yeah. Like I think it was just like, this woman is literally going to do whatever she wants to get what she wants.
Yeah.
So she's going to do it by any means necessary. And her sole purpose was just to get after what is the best way to mentally embody these characters in this situation. And I'm just going to bulldoze their emotions in the way or whatever's in the way. So I definitely think that like came through for Natalie Portman, and she was so detached from real life scenario too. Like she didn't have a moral obligation to be there. She wasn't like a documentarian. She was just trying to insert herself into a situation and then dramatize it for a box office hit. Like that was her shallowness and her hollowness too. So I did like how she wasn't this empathetic you know, she didn't understand people. She was just at dinner. She wasn't like, how are you? How's school going?
Yeah.
Like she was just trying to put on a mask, and then she was always putting on a mask for people. Whoever she talked to, like the guy on the phone talking with the studio, I guess that was her husband or her other partner.
I think it was her.
And she
husband.
just immediately hangs
or
up.
Fiance.
Yeah.
Forgot if she said she was engaged or not.
Well, and then
But-
she has a second one.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was heartless. I mean, that
Yes,
her character
yeah.
was like a heartless woman who also was just this facade. She wasn't much of herself within the movie because
Right.
she's literally trying to inhibit and mimic the other woman. I mean, there's literally a scene in the movie where you see it play out and she's mimicking her as the scene goes along.
Yeah. So
She's literally mirroring her.
Yes.
I do think though, and like I think at the beginning she wasn't as heartless, and then over time she became more and more heartless. But my question is that like, is Natalie Portman just being super smart in being, okay, my character is, I'm trying to, like, is her character just trying to become this woman who is a heartless woman also, if you think about it? Like Julianne Moore's character, she's cold.
I was going to say the other part of it is, I'm trying to say it without spoiling, when she goes in with the intention of embodying this woman, but at the same time she says it multiple times, I think, before she gets the answer that she's not looking for, but it's the answer that she gives her, where she's basically like, I want to know why this happened, and I want to know what her thought process is behind what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then she thinks that she's going to say that she like has regrets.
Mm-hmm.
And she has no regrets.
Yeah.
And then once that happens, I don't know if maybe her character or Natalie Portman is like, okay, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to do whatever it takes for me to get to the place I need to get to embody this woman.
Which is becoming more and more heartless and cold.
Like she realizes in that moment, I don't need to be what I thought I needed to be, and play it from a perspective where I need to come at this from a regretful place. And there's even that scene where Julianne Moore is like, I don't understand why that's relevant.
Yes.
And then she's like, all right, if it's not relevant, then fuck it. I'm just going to do it the way that I need to do it.
Well, so that's what I mean. Like, because I do think Natalie Portman's character had a big arc also, that she starts off just trying to get like kind of information and backstory. But then the moment that she realizes like, oh no, this woman is just like heartless, she then starts to be like, okay, I'm going to embrace this and start really taking on this character and starting to become you. But then does it get a little too like meta in a way? Which again,
That's what I liked about it.
Yeah,
like
it might just be a movie that's more in your wheelhouse. But explain why you like it, because I think it's valuable.
Okay, so just going back to like Charles Melton too. I said his name right this time. But he was. I really like just the overall premise of this movie. It's not about the scandal itself, but the dust that settles with them after the scandal happens, and especially with Charles, is you see how he's been living with this pain for years and years, and then you see a lot of scenes play out, and he's slowly peeling it back, and then he's unveiling his trauma to his kids, and then by the end he kind of like lets it all flush out to Julianne. He's like, is this okay? Like, are we bad people for doing this? Like, I don't think I want to like be in this. And then she kind of does it again, like dismisses him. Yeah. And to embody that too as an actor, I don't even know, like that's an incredible process of like, you know, this isn't just something that immediately happens in the script. This is something that you have to put yourself into as an actor of like, I've been living with this for 20 years or however, I think it was like
24 years.
Yeah, 24 years. So how is that going to be perceived, and what is he going to look like? How is he going to be an example of a father to his kids? Mm-hmm. I thought that was really interesting. I really liked all of the effects that it had on Julianne Moore's first family's kids too, like the son in the band, and how he was just like so outwardly.
He's so good in the movie.
Yeah, he was just so uncomfortable because he would get right in her face and Natalie Portman's face and say, no, this messed up everything. Like she messed up my entire life. Like, and just imagining all these situations play out for different people was what was so intriguing to me. So I really like character pieces like this where they're not good people, but it's very entertaining to see how a screenwriter is going to justify these means for the characters.
Yeah.
So
We didn't really talk too much about Julianne Moore's performance, but I feel like at this point it's a good time to jump into spoilers because we're getting into we're trying to skirt around a lot of things.
Yeah.
So for the viewer, if you are watching this, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't seen the movie, check out May December. It's on Netflix. You can stream it now. If you have seen this movie and you're looking for our spoiler review, spoilers ahead. We're gonna dive into it in 3, 2, 1. Okay. So this movie tells a story, not completely adapting, but inspired by true events that happened in the 1990s that I was unaware of. But as soon as I watched the movie with my whole family, and as soon as it started, everyone was aware of it. And I was like, what the hell is this? So I looked it up. Like, I paused the movie and looked it up right away. But Julianne Moore plays a character by the name of Gracie who has committed an illegal sexual relationship with a minor. Mm-hmm. And it happens at the time when Charles Melton's character, Joe, is in 7th grade. So if let's say he's 13 and they're 24 years apart. So if he's 13, she would have been 36.
Yeah.
So that in and of itself is like gross to say. This is a disgusting topic, but it's real, and this is based on a real event that happened. And the woman who committed this, her name is Mary Kay Latorno. Latorno? That's how we said it, right?
That's what we're going with.
We're going to go with that. And Moore's character at they say her current age is 60. So at that point, that would mean that his character would be
also 36.
36.
Which is another thing.
So Joe at this point is the same age that Gracie is when she had committed this sexual relationship. And the thing is, she goes to jail for this, and she gets pregnant with one of his children. And the movie takes place in the present day where they now have a family. They have one daughter that's in college, which is wild because the father's 36.
Yep.
And then 2 children that are about to graduate high school. And this is their family. How Natalie Portman plays into this is that she plays an actress by the name of Elizabeth, and she comes in and she is going to portray Gracie in a role for a movie, telling the story of how this occurred. And then it just gets rolling. I mean, once you find out what happened, the movie opens in a way where
you don't know what's happening, but you know something like not sinister, but just like dark is happening, just only based on the soundtrack, though, based on the music, which I will say I hated the music for this. I hated the soundtrack. And I just told Zach this before we started filming. Nothing. This moment threw me off so much in the beginning when she opens. She's like in the kitchen.
It has to be the hot dog line.
Absolutely, it's the hot dog line. She literally opens the fridge and is like, I don't know if she says we need more hot dogs or we don't have enough hot dogs, but she says like, we don't have enough hot dogs. Dun, dun, dun. And I'm like, what are we doing right now?
As soon as that happened, that's immediately where at that point I knew what I was getting myself into.
I didn't.
So I was like, okay, this is going to be something that at points they're going to be very aware of how they're trying to play this B movie sort of perspective at times, like trying to do things in a way that is very unconventional from what many would have thought a movie with this cast, with the talent attached, the release date, the people garnering like critical acclaim, like it's going to spin that on its head a little bit. And I don't think they went into it with those intentions, obviously, because Netflix scooped up the movie. It's not like it's not like not all of the movies that play like this always get nominated for Oscars, you know? But yeah, the score,
yikes.
It jumps at you. I feel like it is a good way to put it. It like peeks its head out of a closet and then it just jumps out and tries to scare you.
I was gonna say too, I feel like it calls too much attention to itself.
Absolutely.
Like, it's not subtle and it's not that menacing like undertone. It's so in your face. Like it almost completely is opposite of what is on screen at points. So,
like for me, I don't know, soundtrack, I think that it should be not apparent at all unless it's for a reason. Like the film that I keep thinking of, that had sounds like that all of a sudden jumped at you is Quiet on the Western Front. Do you remember?
Yeah.
The,
That
like,
chime,
that like I don't even remember the sound. I can't make it. Yes.
Yeah.
But I think that was if you watch, you have to watch it because then you'll know exactly what we're talking about.
The whole movie, yeah.
That film, because they would have an very intense scene and then all of a sudden scare you kind of with this loud music, but it added to your suspense. For me, it was like I was just watching a quiet scene of like Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman trying to like fight for more power, and then all of a sudden like this loud sound came at me, and I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah, it didn't feel like, okay, now we're in a car and we're chasing each other through a
it was like a
swamp.
quiet scene.
Yeah. It was just like very in your face, very quiet dialogue, and then it would just go
and then it punches you
like the Haunted Mansion. I was like, all right, well, cool.
It like you were saying, Zach, it kind of goes against what the movie they're trying to tell us. Like, it's supposed to be an intimate scene between like two characters of like personal conversation.
Yeah.
And you're like, what just fucking happened?
I also was watching it like with my headphones, and so I was like, what? I was like, I don't like this right now.
Yeah, probably like literally shocked you.
No, it did. There were moments that I jumped and I was like, oh God.
But so much of the movie is based in these experiences for all the characters through their own grief, their own trauma. And some of it is played for like legitimate dramatic effect. And some of it, like we've talked about a little bit, has been a little melodramatic. And like Liz has described, sometimes she felt that it could be Hallmarky at times.
Yes.
The protagonists are all projecting something different than what they're actually feeling. They're trying to sort of put it out there in a different way. Like we talked about it a little bit with Charles Melton's character about how so much is internal because he's dealing with the trauma of literally having sex with a middle-aged woman at the age of 12 or 13 and having to deal with that. And he took it as a child, which many would, in a way that it was like gratifying because it was like, oh, this older woman finds me attractive.
Giving you attention.
Is giving you attention. And at the same time, as he's now grown up into this, and I love that they had the family like in it because I think it showed his role as a father too. And my brother was talking about this when we were watching the movie. I think it's when he has the scene with Natalie at the end of the movie. And she's like, you're still so young. Like, you can do this. He's like, I have a family.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is a guy that's 36 years old. Like, I'm in a week from today, I'm going to be 8 years younger than that. And like, I couldn't imagine having a family of 3 kids with one in college. And like, it's insane to me. So to think that that's where his brain goes, he's still so mature for his age. But then there's other ways where he's so self-contained and he's so unaware of how to be a person and have real relationships that it completely combusts in that moment where he finally freaks out on Julianne Moore, and the scene with Natalie Portman after they eventually have sex at the end of the movie. So I don't know. I loved his performance. I thought he was great. But what do you think about what the other protagonists like Gracie and Elizabeth were kind of putting out there versus what they were dealing with internally?
I'll let Zach go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Unless you have.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I want to hear what you say.
Yeah. Kind of just going back to what I was saying too, of like how, Gracie, who's Julianne Moore, is trying to justify and explain herself and make it as this obvious thing that this is a loving situation, and you know that this is okay, and like that was so wrong, you know, but seeing her try and like fight for that in situations, and her being like, there's that one line where she's like, oh, I'm a very secure person, where she's like fighting Natalie Portman, and then she goes, put that in there, like, I'm a very secure person, like I'm okay with my decisions. But then that's at the end of the graduation, or I think I'm trying to remember. But I remember the exact line, but I forget what scene that was. Yeah, I can't really remember, but it has something to do with that. And then Natalie Portman, that was another fascinating thing for me, was like, what are the lengths that she's going to go to try and get this role out of Joe and Gracie, and what is she going to like feed off of? And then she takes the high road, and Do you want me to give like another big spoiler?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're in
Yeah,
spoilers now.
Yeah,
Go for it.
well, like she literally sleeps with Joe.
Yeah.
And she just to get that was so crazy because she gets like this temporary satisfaction of like, oh, well, now I know what Gracie was feeling like. All right, you can leave now. Like that was insane.
Yeah.
Like to see that unfold, like she's willing to be that bad at it. And then also like he was so broken down. He's like, I trusted you. Like I liked you. Like I really let you in. Like I was vulnerable with you. And then she's like, yeah, well, and like you can tell that she's just brushing him off again. She's dismissing him again. And she just wanted to get into that perspective of Gracie in the worst way possible.
But I will say, I think that also shows his youthful mentality that he's like, oh, like this woman, like we had sex, like she loves me and now wants to start a life with me.
1000% what I thought.
Yeah,
and the
I
other
did too.
part that, and this is like no fault or criticism on the filmmaker, Todd Haynes deciding to do, like we don't see the full length of what their relationship is. We only see what's on the screen, right? But it's obvious that when he's like, I really liked you. I thought you liked me too. It's like, what happened within that relationship that we saw unfold on screen that made you believe that?
Yeah.
Unless he was so insecure with himself as a person. And again, it was the first time he was getting satisfaction from another attractive woman that in years. And that's why like they keep going back to, which we haven't talked about this too much, but I did like this element of it where he keeps texting the woman from the like the caterpillar group, and he's talking
That's
about
who it was?
Yes,
and it wasn't
I
supposed
totally
to be.
missed that.
It's not something to beat you
It's
over the head.
not relevant.
It's subtle.
Yeah. And so it's not relevant to the point where this is a major character. It's relevant that he is like reaching out, and he is like Natalie Portman. I liked it for that reason because he's using Natalie Portman as an escape route, and he's also like, this is the second time in my life, he's 36, where a woman has shown me affection and I'm opening up myself again. And it is a immaturity of him that he's trying to bond with someone again. He's never had a mature relationship in his life.
Bond with someone that's at least closer to his fucking age.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think your
they're
wife
the same age.
Your wife is 60. I'm like,
yeah,
you met this woman when you were 12.
He's introducing the idea of having a normal relationship for the first time in his life. And that's another thing that I wanted to get into too, was this reoccurrence of the butterflies. And like there's a great quote that Screen Rant used. And they say that the metamorphosis of the butterflies represents Joe's immaturity to maturity and the possibility of starting anew. So he always has this like attraction to the science of like butterflies and like just having this beautiful adolescent attraction to that. And then, but they use that as a theme of he like just came out of like he was growing up in puberty time, especially with his relationship with Julianne Moore. And he got completely taken advantage of. And then he got taken advantage of again with Natalie Portman. But it's also that maturing with their relationship that in a way. And he's trying to find himself and
within that,
find how he was robbed of his youth too.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think one of my favorite scenes was when he's on the roof with like his son, and that's I think that is the like when all of a sudden it's you see the change in his character of he's realizing like, wow, I've missed out on so much, and I think he's starting to realize like my kids have lived fuller lives than I have, and I think that was the change, and I really loved that scene. I think it's also when you start to see the tension between him and Gracie's character a little bit more, because you haven't really seen much tension between them yet. And then I think that really pushed his character like throughout the rest of the way. So I ended up buying like the change in his character.
Yeah.
Which is why I think his performance is just like really great and strong. I do think for Julianne Moore's character, I just got a little confused on like what her character's motives were, I guess. Like in overall spec, why would you sign off on your life rights if you really don't want somebody making a movie about you? Like she's so cold to Natalie Portman's character. Why would you do that? Purely for money? But it seems like she doesn't want anyone talking about her.
Well, yes and no, because she does say at the same time, they say it a couple times in the movie where they talk like in conversation when it's between Gracie and Joe, where she's like, we're telling the story so that other people can understand. which I thought
Okay.
was very interesting. Like I don't think that would ever.
Their perspective.
Yeah,
They're
like,
trying to get their perspective.
Yes, 100%. And the crazy thing is Natalie Portman drives herself to such a place with her role that
That she does.
she makes herself try to understand it.
Yeah.
To the best of her ability.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's.
I just got confused because I think one of the lines that really confused me was, okay, with her son from her first marriage, how he drops the bomb of like, oh yeah, my mom was definitely like assaulted as a child from like her brothers. And that threw me off. I was like, oh my God, wow. But then in the graduation scene, when she says to Natalie Portman's character, she's like, and don't believe that thing about my brothers.
She's trying to bury that trauma herself too. Like she can't live with
But
that
then she
herself.
says, she's like, I told him to tell you that.
Right.
That whole scene confused me.
Confused the shit out of me because
ending,
I was
that
like,
ending part confused me. I don't know if you can break it down.
because then for me, I was like, so did she plot all of this the whole time to just confuse Natalie Portman's character? Like, what is this?
Or I think maybe
awareness?
Corey Michael Smith's character, her son, the one who's in the band, he is someone that is like the one common thread and theme throughout the whole entire movie is insecurity and it is grief and is trauma. And every single character has that. Like even Natalie Portman to a degree, her character has insecurity. Now Gracie doesn't seem to have any insecurity, but she definitely has.
Well, she does with her baking.
Yeah, that's true though.
With her baking,
That is
she gets
true.
emotionally upset when people cancel orders.
That's true. So I don't know if it was like a point that with his character, her son from the first marriage, that he was basically projecting this thing that he really feels very like he was backstabbed. Like he was thrown off and he was thrown off guard and his whole entire life went up in arms because then everything that surrounded his family was this tabloid that his mother said with the seventh grader.
Yeah.
But he still is like, that's his mother. So he still relies on her and he's still like, she's like, we talk every day. And I did believe that.
I didn't.
Okay. See, I did.
I didn't believe it.
So you thought that was just, you were just like,
Yeah. How can they talk every day, but then they come into a dinner and or a restaurant and you see them and it's just like, hi, like no hugs, no like.
Because of the uncomfortability of the situation.
And I think it's a
I know,
complex situation.
But if she talks to them every day and it's been years since, it's not like this relationship happened last year. It's been years. And if she really talks to them every day, then the relationship would be slightly different in person. So I think that she's lying because she doesn't want it to be known that she has no relationship with her prior kids.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But so anyway,
You can interpret it either way, I guess.
how did you guys take that final scene of her being like, I told him to tell you that about my brothers, but it's not true?
I don't know. I think it was definitely like some scheming, but also like maybe she was trying to throw Natalie Portman off the track of like her scent of, oh, there's a justification behind this. She's not just like crazy and like, I don't know, but
Right? I'm confused
I
by
guess I guess I can see your point on it, but I think the trauma, I feel like it did happen to a point. I don't know, but even so, crazy people do crazy things. Like they don't have to always have the justification, but I don't know.
That threw me off because I feel like the brother thing kept popping up too. Like Natalie Portman at one point asked her like, how many brothers do you have? And then Julianne Moore's character was like, you know that already. And I was like, oh, there's tension here for like no apparent reason when that's just like a random question that I could ask you guys both. Like, how many siblings do you have again? And
Well, I think because she wants to ignore everything that came before this relationship with Joe. I think she just wants to be forgetful of everything that came before. I mean, aren't there scenes where Elizabeth asks Gracie specifically about her first marriage and she just doesn't really talk about it? And that's when she goes to meet the ex-husband.
Yeah.
So I don't think she wants anything with her past life to be brought to fruition until she then feels attacked, because at the same time, I don't know if it's when I want to get his name right in the movie. Corey Michael Smith's character's name is Georgie. When Elizabeth meets with the lawyer, who's also like their neighbor, and then Georgie just happens to be there. It's not like she planned to meet Georgie.
Yeah.
So then there's a scenario in which they have a conversation that I obvious, like she wasn't privy to that happening. Now, I believe that she probably was aware that she was going to meet with the ex-husband. She's probably aware that she was going to meet with the lawyer, but I don't think she had any indication that she was going to have any conversations with her kids, because you also
Are you saying Natalie Portman wasn't aware that she was going to have that conversation?
No, I don't think that
Gracie
was aware that Elizabeth was going to have any of those conversations, because it's not like she has any conversations with any of the kids besides that scenario in which they just happen to be in the same place.
Although Gracie says at one point, she's like, I think she says, like, I'd appreciate you if you told me who you're going to go see so I can let my neighbors know so I don't have to keep lying to them. Wasn't that a line, or am I going crazy?
No, it probably was.
And so that, again, I don't know. There were just like quick lines, because there was a lot of quick dialogue in this. I will say, like, quick lines that had information that just kind of confused me a little bit. Yeah, and most of them came from Julianne Moore.
Okay.
So, do you
I think there was a competitive nature behind it a little bit.
Maybe.
Like I think I know what you're saying, because there were some points I was like, where does this connect to there? But I think it was just a competition that she was trying to one up Natalie Portman at points and just say, you don't know everything about me. Mm-hmm. But what were you saying, DJ, about?
I was gonna say, did you want to touch upon her role overall?
Yeah, I mean, I love her as an actress. I think her emotional breakdowns felt real, felt honest. I think it felt like an honest performance. I just felt like there was a lot, I don't know. I felt like Charles's performance, it was clean, it was precise, and I knew exactly what his character was thinking at all times. And her character, for me, it felt like I had to work really hard to understand, like, connecting the dots. And I don't know if that's what they were trying to go for, to make her kind of like a crazy person, or if that was just Julianne Moore not being able to deliver a clear performance.
I think I would say a little bit of the same thing with Julianne Moore. Just there was a couple scenes where she's like sobbing in bed that I felt did contradict her security. And I don't know if she overtly expressed it, but of like what she was sobbing about, if it was regret that she affected his life so badly. But it didn't, it was very strong of an emotion to present, and then
no explanation.
The next scenes that she just returned to normal, and then I think it happened one other time, and then by the end she's like, well, we have graduation tomorrow, like this is normal, and I got that for the sake of she's dismissing it.
Graduation.
Yeah.
I felt that Charles Melton's performance like buoyed this movie for me. I just feel like they're in two different approaches. And I felt that he was the anchor that kept everything together. And so much of it was based, and I agree with what you were saying, Zach, and how Screen Rant sort of referenced it. Like, so much of the complex themes are played out in a really good way with his performance.
Yes.
The other two, it seems like it's so tongue-in-cheek on what it's trying to accomplish that it's very, like, it's not like it's in your face in a way where they're trying to be like, but it's just, they're very over the top in the way they're trying to deliver, like, this is uncomfortable and it's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable, and we're going to make you feel uncomfortable by the way we talk and by the way we act and by the way we have interactions with one another. And it doesn't feel real. Like, none of that feels real to me. And I think that that's where this movie splits me as a viewer, because the movie feels like two different approaches. It feels like one actor was told direction one way, or maybe he just took it upon himself to play it one way. And then the other two played it a different way. And I do think it's ironic. It's like, they're both terrific actresses. I think we all agree. They're fantastic performers.
Yeah.
But he's getting the acclaim because he played it much more straight, and he played it in a way where it's like, no, this person has trauma, and he's playing it in a way that it seems a lot more real than the way that the other performers would have handled it. So I don't know, that overall, that makes it a very weird watch for me. Like, the movie overall to me was something where some scenes I loved, and then other scenes I was like, what did I like?
What was the point of that?
What
happened?
Know. The only scene I actually really enjoyed between the two of them was the scene that we referenced a little bit before with the mimicking, because I thought that was something where you really start to see, like, you started to see everything turn
When they're in the dress shop?
Yes, in
Yeah.
Elizabeth's head.
First of all, that shot though too.
Brilliant.
Yeah, well,
Gorgeous.
that's another thing I was looking up too.
Talk about the below the line stuff, Zach, because I feel like we haven't.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a lot of what they were trying to do with visuals with mirrors and just how there is a duality behind both of them. Of there's Natalie Portman, the performer, and then there's Natalie Portman, the psycho narcissist who is just trying to be obsessive and get what she wants. And there was that shown through just the cinematography with her in two different angles of the mirror in the dress shop. And then it was the same thing with Julianne Moore of there's two sides to the story in her perspective, or there's two sides to how people perceive her and how she actually conducts herself, and or how she sees herself and how people think of that type of thing. So I really appreciated that. It's very subtle. It's not a flashy movie by any means. I thought it was shot well. I think it's one of those movies where you're shooting for the story. It's not like you're trying to get all these crazy looking things in the frame. It's a very modern, grounded, personal piece, and they stuck to that. And I think that the cinematography enhances that at points. I think the music doesn't, but I think that it is serviced by the mirroring, literally and thematically. So
yeah. The other thing too is I feel that the two perform like it feels like catty to me at some points. It doesn't feel like real natural conflict. Did anyone else feel that between Elizabeth and Gracie's character? Not like natural. I mean, there's obviously conflict there because one is invading this other woman to tell the story, but similar to like what you said, Liz, like if she didn't want the story told, she didn't have to have the story told. So it feels very like back and forth in like a catty way. Like it looks like they're fighting with one another before they even
no, I get that.
Fully see the realization.
Like I wish the beginning, because right off the bat, Gracie doesn't want her there. She says to like her friend, she's like, I hope that she's not like an annoying actor.
Yeah.
And so I wish that there had been more of a growth with that kind of cattiness, as you say. I wish that it had been like both of them kind of tiptoeing around each other first just to see what's happening, because it's a new situation for both of them, I'm assuming, and then that cattiness growing. I think to start off right off the bat disliking each other doesn't give a lot for that relationship to grow. And I think this was all about relationship and connection, this specific film.
I kind of want to add off both of that, but like I think that was also her protectiveness of Joe and Charles Melton. Like I think that was like, oh, I'm not gonna let another man come into his life, or I'm just like, he's mine. Like, like I don't want anything to infringe on that because this has been working for years. Like I don't want somebody to disrupt that. So maybe it was like subconsciously, oh, I don't want this actor to come in and try and disrupt things, and she eventually does. So I think maybe there was a reserve and a resentment of her already before even meeting her. So maybe that's what they were going for. But I know if you actively want to see something on screen, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, like let's see something happen. Let's not just like see it stay stagnant the whole time.
There are some lines in the script that I think really work. Zach, you brought up the one before about the her saying she's secure. You have another one written in the notes that I really liked. And I remember it like sticking in my mind when she first said it, where she says, "I'm naive. I always have been. In a way, it's been a gift." Because it's
crazy.
Like it's fucking wild considering the circumstances. And it's like, so you're naive to the fact that you robbed this child of their adolescence because you were the dominant in the scenario, and you're just okay with that. And it shows that in certain ways throughout their relationship, though they're more equal now because they're both adults at this point, even though there's still a 24-year age gap. Like I had noticed right away when they sit down for dinner and she goes, that's one, with him drinking the beer.
Oh yeah.
So it's like she's still putting him on a monitor as if he's like a child. And it's like, just letting you know, Joe, like you're only allowed to have one. I remember when we first started dating, you were 21, you had a really wild like, it was just like, Jesus, man, like, what the fuck is this relationship?
Yeah.
So that was interesting to me. And I don't know. I wish that Todd Haynes as a director maybe went in a different route in terms of focusing more on Joe's relationship, maybe with Gracie, and I don't know if you need the actress part of it. I appreciated it for what it was. That's a completely different movie, but that might have been the one that I would have enjoyed more, like more of a straight drama rather than something where it feels like one character is going one way, the other two characters are going in another way. And I'm so curious on what was said.
Yeah.
Because to me, it doesn't feel like they're connected in a way.
Yeah, like what was the pitch deck like? Like
Yeah.
what was like, these are the themes we want to cover. This is the style. This is the tone. I wish I could see that because I don't even know what the tone was and I just watched it.
Some people love this movie. The Brian, who we've had on the
Brian.
podcast,
Loves
this
it. I think
movie.
he's seen it
Brian,
3 times.
shout out to you.
Shout out, Brian.
But
I think he's seen it 3 times.
Yeah. So he really enjoys this movie. I don't think that I loved it. I thought it was good. And I thought there were parts that I really liked from it. And there were other parts that I didn't love.
Can we talk about the lisp?
We can talk about the list.
Let's talk about the list.
We can talk
Let's
about
talk about the list.
Go ahead.
Was it necessary?
Honestly, well, okay, so when you're saying that, I'm trying to think about when the lisp happened, and
It's
I think
throughout.
it's not. See that for me, maybe it was bad enough where I didn't catch it. Like it should have been relevant to the story. So yeah, go into.
Well,
your
that's
list.
my thing. Like, does the original person who this story is based off like have a lisp? But also, I think the writer of this has come out and said like it's not based off her.
It's not a
just
complete adaptation.
Inspired by
Yes.
that story. So it's like, who brought in this lisp concept? Because for me, it took me out in the beginning. I kept being like, what's up with Julianne Moore right now? Like, what's going on with this like dialect or something? Or for a second, I thought she was just doing a really bad. Where are they, in Georgia?
It's definitely like
I think
South
it's Georgia.
Carolina
Yeah, I
or
was like-
something south.
I was like, is she doing a really bad Southern accent that's like she's trying to keep it subtle or something? And it didn't hit me that it was a lisp until the scene between Gracie and Joe when he's like, I'm questioning everything and like we never talk about this, and it really starts to come out. And then like I was talking to you about it, that's when I realized I was like, oh, okay, so she used to have a lisp. She got speech therapy and now it only comes out in very heightened, like stressful moments. But like, why is that necessary? I just felt like Julianne Moore, she could have focused all her energy on her acting and on this story and forgotten that completely.
Yeah, I don't really remember. Like, it's weird. I don't remember it being that prevalent or prominent.
It
too
bothered
much.
me.
But I kind of, it's weird. I don't even really remember it so much in the scene you're talking about, which was a really good scene. But I think I remember her having it when they cancel, when the one neighbor cancels the
She did.
cake order.
Yes.
Because she's crying. That scene, I think I remember it vaguely. But then, and we have differing opinions on this, when Natalie Portman finally starts to perform the lines in front of the mirror, the lisp is so overdone. And so, like...
So my theory, though, Natalie Portman is doing that based off, and I just realized this. Natalie Portman's doing that based off a letter that happened, 24 years ago?
Oh, from
The letter that
that Joe had.
Yes,
Gave
and so
to her.
that's probably prior, before she had this speech therapy.
That's a good point. Okay.
That's a good point.
Or
I can
maybe
see it.
maybe
Like a
I'm,
final
maybe I'm like
embodied.
overthinking this, but
I
like
know.
I think it is about like her trying to embody Gracie again. And,
Yeah.
And I think, maybe she's.
By any means
I'm not
necessary.
even gonna.
By
yeah,
any-
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Literally.
bring
Like,
out
I
the
don't-
list.
yeah.
Like
Yeah, I don't think it was done
necessary at
well.
all.
I think it was just another. If they were trying to do it, I think I would say that they were trying to do it as another thing that she was trying to mirror, just another element. But was it needed? Probably not. So
No.
I can agree with
Yeah,
you.
and to me, it led to an awkward scene. But I
I
don't think
enjoyed her
you
scene.
enjoyed that
I
scene.
enjoyed that because for anybody that like we're talking about the scene where Natalie Portman is just full on facing the camera and she's
I love that scene.
I loved
Yeah.
it. I thought it was brilliant because for me, I really resonated with you as an actor trying to like get in the headspace and remember your lines or create a moment, and you're just staring at yourself in a camera and trying to like connect the dots of this character. And so I resonated with
yeah,
it.
I don't mean to not to say that you guys were thinking too much into it, because I'm not saying that. But like, again, I watched it with my family, and to a casual viewer, that scene does not play that well. Like
Really?
everyone laughed.
Oh, I got
And
it
it
right
was a
away.
scene where it's like, again, if we're talking about a scene, this is why I'm saying it should have been played differently. We're talking about a scene that is, he gives her the fucking letter. It's a very pivotal scene. He gives her the letter that was given to him by her, right? It's given to him from Gracie, from when he's a child. He gives this to Elizabeth to have. She reads it in front of the mirror, a very emotional scene. And the only thing that my family was able to pick up on was the lisp. But I'm saying that's a choice. But don't you think that's
wasn't it a choice of your family to pick up on all
No, I'm saying I'm being honest with you. It's that prominent, and it's that like even the way that Natalie, and I understand, like, I'm not saying she was bad in the role or she's bad in that scene, but the lisp isn't even that predominant in the movie, nor do you see that version of her throughout it. That when the lisp is that prominent, it makes you kind of, it's like not supposed to make you feel that way. Like, it's not. And because of how over the top it is, it's like she hasn't talked that way the whole movie. Not even Natalie. I'm saying Gracie.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see that as a viewer.
See, I picked up on it right away because the moment Julianne Moore started talking, I was like, "Why? What's going on with this dialect right now?" I was like, "What's happening?"
Well, I knew what was happening. I'm saying I feel like all of us knew what was happening, but we were just like, "Where is this?" It wasn't that much the whole movie.
No, I think it's just because it's supposed to be when she was younger and she probably had it before, and so they're trying to keep the what's it called? Like they're trying to keep all the like dots connected.
So you don't think it was like Natalie Portman as her actress character trying to play it up? Because to me, that's what it felt like. To me, it felt like she was trying to even play up the lisp to like be a thing.
Well, because
even in their conversations, it's not like she has that much of a lisp.
No, but like, so think about it. If I were to put on a lisp right now, it would be much more heightened than somebody that naturally has it. Mm-hmm. So to like real life context, I think it's really good because she's not just going to magically be good. Because think about it. Somebody that has a lisp, usually they're trying to hide it in a way. She was trying to heighten it because she's trying to learn how to speak it with that for the first time, you know?
Yeah.
I'm just coming at it from an acting point of view.
And that's what I'm saying. It's a different perspective, but I think that's another point where it's like,
which also then leads to what you feel of that, bringing in the element of like the actor kind of was just another layer that maybe they didn't need.
I would argue you don't need it.
Yeah.
But it led to an intriguing story.
Well, so I think that I feel like instead of doing just a regular true crime, like unraveling the story.
I don't want to see that either.
I don't want to see that again. This did add an interesting element about vanity, tabloids, exploiting regular people for just their story. I did think that it brought in a lot of elements. Do I think it got a little lost in how many themes they were trying to cover? A little bit. And I wish it had a better ending.
Oh, really? Because I actually, my opinion, I watched this with my girlfriend, and I actually didn't like the ending at first either. And then we had a conversation about it, and the way my girlfriend was explaining it was just like, you know, like this is how things do happen. So I actually appreciated the ending for the sake that, you know, he's just stuck in this void of like he has to live with that trauma. And I get like the active, like he gets out of it, he gets out of the abusive relationship, but I did appreciate it, like what the message was trying to say of like living with your choices and some of the grief that comes with that. So I did like the ending.
I like that part, but I don't know. Yeah. Are you referring to that, or are you referring to that showing them acting out the movie?
So I guess both. Yeah. For me, okay. If we're gonna,
I agree with you, Zach. I also like that perspective, but the movie scene was weird.
I think they kind of go hand in hand because, okay, if you're gonna give that ending of he's sticking by his life choices, even though he was way too young to be making those life choices, and like life goes on this way, sometimes it isn't a completely different change. I get it. But then you need to give us like a smart power punch of like this film that we don't really know much about this film. And instead they give us like what, a minute and a half of just takes for no apparent reason.
Yeah, I think it's trying to show you that she's so obsessive with the character and this process that she wants to keep running it until she actually feels something for the little boy, which is a whole other level of disturbing.
I didn't
what
get
Yeah.
that at all.
You didn't get that? Is that what? I don't know. Maybe I misinterpreted it.
I was gonna say
not
that
like on a deep, not in a deep
No.
level, but it was at a point because she says to the director, she's like, "All right, I think that." Remember, the director's like, "Oh, I think that's great," and she's like, "Wait." She's like, "I'm almost there. I can feel it."
Yeah.
Like she's.
Right.
I think what she's saying is not that she can feel herself like doing a good job. I think she's trying to be like, I am trying to immerse myself so much within this character that I'm looking at this kid and I can feel some sort of attraction toward him.
I didn't get that. It just felt very mundane to me. Like that to me looked like a normal set of like sometimes the director likes the final take and the actor's like, no, can we just do one more for me? Just
Okay.
because you want to try something.
Well, you're
So
the
like
actor.
for me, I don't know. I felt like it was just mundane and like boring
Okay.
of an ending.
I thought the power punch was him witnessing the graduation when he's like looking at his kids go off to graduate, and then he's just processing that and he starts like tearing up too, because all of that again like wrapped up right there, because he's like, I never had something like this. I never had a clean graduation where the spotlight wasn't on me for all the wrong reasons. You know, like I didn't have a life like everyone else did. And then kind of the same thing of like, you know, I have to live with everything that's happened, and I got sucked into this and I got roped into a plot that happened. So I think that was the power punch for me, was the graduation of him at least.
And he
I don't
can't
know,
even sit
yeah.
in the bleachers.
Yeah, exactly.
of
He
all
couldn't
the
even sit
attention.
next to her. Yeah.
You remember that, right? Like he's literally outside the fence watching the graduation.
yeah, but like I didn't get that was because of like attention that they would
I think
draw.
it was their disagreement too.
That's what I thought,
Was
that they
it?
were just
Okay.
mad at each other, and so,
So
then they're
I
not
thought
like.
I thought it was something where he was like, I don't know if it's a good idea for the two of us to be in such a public setting with.
But like they've been there for 20 years already, so like they've gone to like family events together, like they went to a restaurant together. So like I don't know,
That's
I
true.
just was kind like, for me, I get that ending, very Lifetime hallmarky ending of like he's okay with his trauma because he's looking at his kids. Like what?
Oh, I don't think he was okay
What?
with it. No, I think he was like, oh my gosh, like I put my kids through this too, like along with himself.
So make a
That's
change,
why I
do
want.
something.
That's why that is the movie I want. Like you were talking, you're like, I don't want, and I understand your perspective completely, and I agree with you. You're like, instead of trying to do with the true crime element, you're like, I appreciate the way they went for it with this. I want to see the shit with the family. I want to see.
You want to hear more from the kids.
Yeah, like even the little scenes that happen, like the one I forget exactly what happens too, but like even I guess this adds to the Natalie part. But when Natalie goes to visit the school
Mhm.
and talk to the acting class, and the daughter like is so pissed off about the way she reacts.
Yeah.
Like that was something I was interested in. I was interested in the way the kids were. That scene on the roof, I agree, is probably one of the strongest scenes in the movie.
I loved it.
Because it's like a genuine reaction where his son is in such disbelief. He's like, wait a minute, like how have you never smoked pot before? Like it doesn't make sense to me. And he's like, can I smoke with you? And it's like a nice moment, but at the same time, it's like Zach was saying, there's so much there that didn't happen because his adolescence was completely stripped away from him.
Yeah.
So I was so like I wanted to see that. I wanted to see more of that. And I think that's why like I feel when I give my score, I think that like 95% of my score is because of Charles Melton.
I agree.
Honestly,
I agree.
I think that
It's fair.
he's so much of the movie for me. At least what I enjoyed of it.
Do you want to get into scores?
Do we want to do final
more.
thoughts?
We could do final
Or
thoughts.
do we have any other parts that we want to cover? They're like scenes that you guys want to talk about, or how you feeling?
I don't know. I feel like I covered a lot, unless you guys want to talk about
What do you think?
more.
Let's get into final thoughts.
Okay, I think that as a whole, this is a movie that has a similar it's not completely similar, but has an uncomfortable viewing experience similar to another movie we talked about recently, which is Saltburn. But they go in completely different directions in the way that they approach their themes and the way stylistically the movies are. Despite my qualms with some moments in Saltburn that bring the score down for me, I respected the way that they told their story, and it felt like they really stuck to the way that they wanted to do it. As I've said multiple times on this pod, with May December, I felt that they weren't completely sold on what they wanted their movie to be. And as a viewer, I wish they would have gone one direction. And I felt like, again, I knew what I was getting myself into when the movie started. And then it kind of surprised me when all the Joe scenes sort of came in, because to me, I was like, oh, I'm really enjoying this element of it. And I thought that we would get something fully realized with his character, which you do, but it's much more contained in its own little side pocket in the movie. It doesn't have an overall effect on what the ending of the movie is or what the conclusion is or the resolution, so to speak. So that's my final thought. I'm going to give my score last.
Why?
Because I want to hear your guys' score.
I want to hear your score.
You want to hear my score?
Yeah, give us your score. Give us your
my
score.
score is a 7.2.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Zach, would you like to
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
See, I wanted Zach to go first because I feel like Zach has the highest score.
It's okay. And Zach's going to
totally
stick by
okay.
his, though.
Don't be sad.
I'm surviving.
What? I said, don't be sad. You should be proud of the movies you like.
Go ahead, Liz.
My final thoughts are, this is a really great individual acting performance. As an overall whole, when you put all the pieces together, though, I don't think they really mesh very well. It is an entertaining film. I wasn't necessarily bored until the last probably 5 minutes. And they cover a lot of themes. I mean, I don't love this film, but they try to cover a lot. I think they had a lot to work with. They kind of got lost trying to like hold it all together. The lisp and music took me out a lot of it. I'm going to be honest, but it's not bad acting. And I always appreciate a film that at the end of the day, the actors show up and work their asses off. And for me, the actors really held this together. And so I can appreciate that, because I'd much rather watch actors work and do their best than watch a film that has a good story, but the acting falls apart. So those are my final thoughts. And I only do solid numbers. So I'm going to give this a 7.
Okay.
If I did points, I would give it a 6.9, but I'm going to do a 7.
Wow, that's so provocative of you. Oh my gosh.
Seriously.
Also, Saltburn was way better than this film, just saying.
Okay.
I like Saltburn a lot more than this movie, but I still think Saltburn,
Made you more uncomfortable?
in a different way. Yeah. This made me uncomfortable in that the subject matter was real and it was a scenario. It's based on something, and I was just like, I wish that this never fucking happens in the world. And
Yeah.
the fact that I have to watch a movie about it,
Right.
but I get it. Saltburn was just
Shock factor is what they
Saltburn
wanted.
was shock factor, and it was length of take. I swear to God, if you shorten your fucking takes,
You
Emerald
could've-
Fennel, you could have gotten that. I gave it an 8.2. You could have gotten that probably to a 9.
Ooh, okay.
That's how fucking uncomfortable I was.
That's
Seeing
crazy.
All
Saltburn.
Look, man. Look, Barry's a good-looking dude. Like that's all
I have no
to say.
problem, dude. I will watch Barry.
First of all, if we're gonna talk about Saltburn, shout out to Murder on the Dance Floor. I've been listening to that song nonstop. We love it here.
It's a
Zach,
great song.
final thoughts.
Oh, my final thoughts. I think that the film is a lot smarter. It's very smart, and it goes into a lot of gray area characters. It's even like one of the quotes is Natalie Portman. She says, "I like to play like gray area characters," it's very meta. But the story is, again, it's unfortunate things happen like this, but it's interesting to watch what a screenwriter can do to justify a bad person in a script and how the effects of that have on other characters' psychologies. So that's something I really appreciate in movies, is not just getting a straightforward hero or a straightforward villain, but something that's human, where, people, she's not like an evil killer, but she's someone who is like sinister in a conniving way and with beguilement. Like she just always is like grooming him and stuff like that. Like those are situations and just human experiences that nobody can quite understand. So it's always interesting for me to go into that and watch that and see what a filmmaker is going to try and do to explore with that. So I really liked Charles Melton. I hope he wins more awards. I know he just won an award for Breakout
The
Star.
Gotham War, I think.
Yeah. So that was huge. I hope he gets an Oscar nom. That
I think he will.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give it a 9. Like I know it's higher.
All right,
it's higher
Zach,
than
stick with
We like
it.
that. We like that. We like when our guys like movies. No, good for you, dude.
Well, should we talk Oscars a little bit? What are we thinking?
Yeah.
I would be in shock if this got any other nominations other than Melton.
I agree.
I think that the screenplay has some really great moments in terms of dialogue. But in terms of
Plot.
plot isn't great in my opinion. And I think that the pacing, because of the way that they stylistically frame the movie, it doesn't always work. So I think like bottom level Fringe, maybe original screenplay, but I doubt it.
Dream Scenario blew this out of the water.
I don't disagree with you.
Screenplay wise,
I don't
come
disagree.
on.
Listen to me. I don't disagree with you. I am telling you right now, I want you to prepare yourself for it not to get a nom.
I'm fighting for it. It's coming
I'm
up.
not saying it shouldn't.
It's coming.
Listen, when
Telling
we get
you
to
all.
when we
I'm
get
in the
to
same boat with you. Like I want it.
no, I
Yeah.
agree.
Just screenplay.
No,
I don't need anything else.
I also want it. I'm telling you right now, when we get to the predictions episode, I will put money down right now that the Academy is not going to put that movie in screenplay.
Well, not with that attitude, they're not.
What the fuck does that mean? If I had a vote, it would be in there. But I'm
amazing.
telling you, I think the only way that movie gets a nom would be Nicolas Cage.
I think screenplay. I don't think Nicolas Cage, honestly. I
But
think there's
then
other
another
performances.
point I want to make is that this movie kind of can be Oscar bait to a point. Like
Yes.
you have 2 great lead actresses, you have a breakout star, you have a controversial script. Like the Academy loves putting on these showy, like controversial scripts at points too.
That's
so
true.
maybe.
You know what's interesting? One of the entertainment journalists I really like by the name of Jeff Snyder, he had just put on his site his thoughts on May December, and he talked about how this could be something in the Golden Globes, but he would see it as a comedy musical category, which is so interesting to me
Comedy musical? What?
because it's so schlocky, like at times, which I don't like necessarily. Like I'm not like, oh yeah, 100%, but if it wants to pigeonhole its way into nominations, I do feel like it can play that way. I mean, first of all, The Martian was nominated for comedy or musical and won
I guess.
at the Golden Globes.
I can see this getting into other awards, but like
I mean, it definitely
Oscars?
the thing that
No.
would suck if it did go the Golden Globe direction of comedy and musical is like Charles Melton's performance is very much not comedic, and that would be the category he'd have to go in because that's where the film would go. So I do think it would be drama, and I don't know. I don't even know if it'll garner. It's a really
There's too much.
really
There's way
fucking
too much.
good movie year. I would be in shock.
Right. Yeah,
would
that's
be
the
in
thing
shock.
too.
Although Zach loves
Right.
it, so I mean, maybe people love it.
I think
I'm asking your honest
I think
opinion. Based on what you've seen this year, and it's all good, just being honest. Would you put this in your 10 Best Picture nominees?
No, probably not.
Okay.
No, I think it's outside of it.
Okay.
It's a very stacked year, but I think if it was like, you know, Nomadland's year, like 2021,
Yeah, that was a weak year.
that was a pretty thin year of big films. I think it could have a chance with there, but this year is so stacked. So
It's a big year. It is a big year.
I will say, runtime, loved it.
Yeah, it was
Not
a little
a
under
single,
Really?
not
What?
a single thing I'd cut.
Little under
found
2
the
hours.
perfect film for Liz.
Yeah,
No,
perfect
it's not
film.
really actually,
It's
but
right under 2 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's perfect.
Yeah. So overall, I think we're all just happy with Charles Melton's performance, and the other lead performances hit or miss in moments. And overall, we got 2 in the 7 range, and Zach went high with the 9. We love that. All right. Is that it?
That's all we got.
all we got.
All right, guys, that's all we got for you on this episode of the Cinema Wave podcast. Please be sure to let us know in the comments whether you were a fan of May December, whether you liked all the performances. Do you think Charles Melton is a breakout star from this? Do we think he's going to be able to sort of use this to catapult his career and get out of the CW and make his way onto the feature film stage? I hope so. He's really good in this. If you guys don't already, make sure you guys hit the bell, subscribe. You guys can see when we release new episodes. Follow us at Cinema Wave Media. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on Facebook. We're on Threads. Also, you can follow us at _Culture Wave Media, where we're on Instagram. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni, signing off.
I am Liz Seiko.
I'm Zach Miller.
And we'll see you guys next time.